Sometimes the most terrifying thing you'll ever see is a pair of headlights in your rearview mirror, and you have no idea who's behind them. My story starts at a gas station on the edge of town, the only place open all night. Where I live, it's basically the midnight sun for the insomniac crowd. A 20-minute drive normally, less if you push it. For me, it's a second living room. My sleep is non-existent, so I'm a regular. The night shift crew has to know my face by now. This was last Tuesday. Every detail is burned into my memory. It was past 1 a.m., and I was deep into a project on my laptop. My brain only really wakes up when the rest of the world goes to bed. I was in that perfect, focused zone. The problem with that zone? Hunger hits like a truck. 1 minute you're fine, the next you're starving. So, around 2 in the morning, I decided to pack up and make the run. The road to the station isn't a major highway. It's a quiet, 2-lane stretch that's usually deserted at that hour. The drive there was nothing. Silent. I pulled in, ordered a burger, and started wandering the brightly lit aisles to kill time. I've never been great at standing still. That's when I saw him. In the back corner of the store, a man was sitting cross-legged on the linoleum floor, facing a cooler door, just sitting there. It was so bizarre my brain didn't register it at first. I had to double-take. He was wearing a dark green jacket and jeans. I couldn't see his face. A part of me needed to. Was he someone harmless or something else? I pretended to browse, moving a few aisles over to get an angle. My plan was a quick glance, then away. I didn't want to be rude. I was not subtle. The moment I peered around the corner, his head snapped toward me. The movement was sudden, mechanical. I froze. And his face, that's what confirmed it. This wasn't just an odd guy. His eyes were wide, unblinking. His bottom lip trembled constantly, like he was freezing, but the store was warm. His whole body was coiled tight. But the worst part was his expression. Blank. Empty. A dead-eyed stare that looked right through me. A stare that felt less like being seen and more like being targeted. After a painfully long second, I broke eye contact and hurried back toward the front counter. My food wasn't ready. The anxiety was spiking. I positioned myself so I could watch that corner of the store, half expecting him to walk out. He never did. I grabbed my bag and got out of there. I thought it was over. As I turned my car onto the dark road, a movement caught my eye. In my side mirror, I saw a figure sprinting from the station door toward a parked SUV. It was the jacket. It was him. I saw him jump into the driver's side. What was he in such a rush for? I didn't want to know. I just drove. After a few minutes, the last glow of civilization faded behind me. It was just my headlights cutting through the black. I'm always alone on this road, so why were there headlights behind me now? They were gaining, fast. I wasn't driving slow. My first logical thought, police. I eased off the gas. The lights kept surging closer. Any second now, the red and blues would flash. But they didn't. As the vehicle closed the final gap, the shape became clear. An SUV. The same one from the lot. It was him. I knew it with absolute certainty. I slammed the accelerator. My sedan leaped forward. Behind me, his high beams started flashing. On, off, on, off. The horn blared. What was his goal? Should I try to lose him, or pull over and hope he passes? I had speed on my side, I thought. The faster I went, the more of pure, icy terror filled my chest. This was the feeling of genuine peril. When my speedometer touched 95, a voice screamed in my head that this would kill me. I swerved into the right lane. He matched me, staying glued to my bumper. I tried slowing down to pull onto the shoulder. The moment I decelerated, impact. He rammed me from behind. The jolt steered me toward the ditch. I wrenched the wheel straight. This was it. He wasn't trying to scare me. He was trying to run me off the road. Everything became slow motion. I saw him lining up for another hit. I don't know if it was instinct or luck, but I swerved hard left and stomped on the brakes. Tires screeched. His SUV shot past me, swerved wildly, and spun off the pavement, disappearing into the dark field. My hands were vibrating on the wheel. I forced myself to drive. I didn't stop until my front door was locked behind me. I called the police, filed a report. The station has cameras, so maybe they found him. It's only been a week. I haven't heard. My car's got a dent. I need to fix it. As for why he chose to chase me, I have no idea. Maybe I looked at him for a second too long. Maybe he was just waiting for anyone. Sometimes the road home is the most dangerous part of the journey. If you felt that tension, if stories like this keep you watching, do me a favor and hit the like button. It helps the channel Winds of Thought more than you know. When you decide to pull over on a deserted highway to help someone, you're rolling the dice with your life. This story takes place a couple years back, during a brutal summer. I was in my mid-20s, working a niche delivery gig. My job was moving specialty computer hardware to remote towns that bigger companies ignored. The routes were marathon sessions, often through the night, deep into the isolated Southwest. The money was good, and as someone raised on long drives, I didn't mind the solitude. On this specific run, I was in the final hours of a haul from Phoenix toward the New Mexico border. It was past midnight, and I was cutting through a particularly barren section of State Highway 82, skirting the edge of Lincoln National Forest. If you haven't been through there after dark, it's a special kind of empty. The road is narrow, the darkness is total, and you can drive for half an hour without seeing another soul. But it's also the only direct route for miles. Any detour would add hours. I had a true crime podcast playing when my headlights caught a scene ahead. A small red car was angled awkwardly onto the gravel shoulder, hazard lights blinking. I slowed down automatically. As I got closer, the beams lit up a woman beside the vehicle. She was holding her phone high above her head, clearly searching for a signal. My gut said, "Keep driving, you hear stories." But then I thought about my own family. What if it was them, stranded and scared? I also had a secret advantage. I kept a legally owned handgun secured under the dashboard, a necessary precaution given my destinations. I stopped, lowering the passenger window just a crack. The woman, who looked to be around my age, rushed over and tried the door. It was locked. Her voice was shaky, rushed. She said her car just died and her phone was dead, and she needed a lift to the nearest town with a gas station. Everything felt off. But the presence of my firearm tipped the scales. I hit the unlock button. She slid in quickly, muttering a slurred, "Thank you," without making eye contact. The slur confirmed my suspicion. She was under the influence of something. That put me even more on edge. I asked basic questions about her car trouble. She dodged every one, just repeating, "Please, just drive." I was seconds from telling her to get out. Then I glanced one last time at her abandoned car in my side mirror. A man stepped out from behind it. He'd been hiding there the whole time. My blood went cold. I snapped my head forward just in time to see a second figure step into the road directly in front of my truck. He was holding something long and solid.
Instinct took over. I stomped on the gas. The woman spun in her seat, looked back, and started screaming. Then her hands dove into her oversized purse, frantic. I knew what that meant. I shouted, "Freeze!" and drew my weapon. I didn't aim it at her, but laid it clearly across the steering wheel. She saw it. She stopped moving.
Instantly. In that moment, the only sound was the roar of my engine and the pounding of my own heart. She went completely silent, staring ahead with a blank, unreadable mask. We drove in that tense quiet for about 30 minutes until we reached the dim lights of a small town. I pulled into a truck stop with 2 semis parked outside. I told her to get out. She refused, mumbling excuses. I wasn't having it. I reached across her, popped the door open, and pushed her out. She fell onto the pavement, shouting incoherently. I saw one of the truckers start to jog over. All he'd see was a man forcing a woman from a vehicle. I yelled a warning about her being dangerous, but I didn't stick around to debate. I hit the gas and left. At the next station, while filling my tank, I checked the passenger seat. Tucked deep in the crevice was a cheap, prepaid phone and a brand new package of heavy-duty zip ties. My stomach dropped. I threw it all in a dumpster and got back on the road. I never reported it, not to the police and not to my employer. Explaining the gun and my physical removal of a passenger was a legal gray area I didn't want to navigate. But one thing is absolutely clear. That night, my caution was the only thing that stood between me and a very different story. If this tale got your heart racing, show some love to the channel. Hit that like button. It truly helps Winds of Thought bring you more true stories from the edge. It's a simple mistake we all make, leaving your phone behind for just a minute. That minute almost cost me everything. A few summers ago, my husband and I were on a massive road trip moving from Utah across to Georgia. We'd chosen a scenic route, which meant navigating some painfully empty stretches of highway. The worst was a 100-mile ribbon of road in western Kansas, just fields and sky. I'd been asleep in the passenger seat for hours when I felt the car slow down and turn. We'd pulled into a lonely gas station, a single bright island in the ocean of dark. My husband said he was getting snacks and fuel. I saw my chance for a decent bathroom. I left my purse and phone in the car. Why would I need them? I'd be 30 seconds. Inside, the air was stale. A bored cashier ignored me. I found the restroom down a narrow, fluorescent-lit hallway. As I pushed the women's room door open, I nearly collided with a woman exiting a stall. Her appearance stopped me cold. Tangled, greasy, gray hair. She wore dirty foam sandals that made a soft slap-slap sound. And wrapped around her was a heavy, stained coat in deep burgundy and navy. Remember, this was Kansas in July, sweltering. She clutched a knotted plastic bag. When she saw me, she didn't look away. She fixed me with a hard, expectant stare, like I was supposed to know a script she'd written. Uncomfortable, I gave a tight smile and tried to sidestep her. She didn't budge to let me pass. I thought she'd leave. She didn't. Instead, she turned and followed me back toward the sinks. She didn't wash her hands. She just stood there, arms rigid at her sides, waiting. The unease solidified into dread. I hurried into a stall and locked the door. The instant the latch clicked, I knew I'd messed up. No phone, no way to call for help. I held my breath,
and listened. After a moment, I heard the slap of her sandals moving toward the door. The door creaked open and slammed shut. She was gone. I waited, relief starting to thaw my fear. Then I heard it. Breathing. Shallow, deliberate breathing that wasn't mine. The realization hit me like ice water. She'd faked her exit. She was still in here, silent and waiting, just out of sight. I sat, frozen, trying to quiet my own panicked breaths. How long could this go on? Finally, the door opened and closed again. The breathing stopped. I waited another 30 seconds, just to be sure. As my hand moved to unlock the stall, a loud, ragged gasp ripped through the silence right outside my door. Then the door slammed again. My heart hammered against my ribs. She'd pretended to leave twice. This was a game, a predator toying with its prey. What did she want? I had to get out. I couldn't stay trapped. I unlocked the stall and stepped out, bracing myself. The room was empty. I washed my hands in a frantic splash and bolted for the hallway. Back in the store, a large man was at the counter buying cigarettes. I used him as a shield,
waiting until his transaction was done, then followed closely behind him toward the exit. If she was outside, I wouldn't be alone. I stepped into the night air, and there she was, looming in the shadow beside the entrance, her eyes locked on me. She was holding something, a dark, sharp object, a blade. Her body was coiled, crouched slightly, like a spring tensed to lunge. I braced for an attack, my muscles locking. But she didn't charge. Instead, she spun and shuffled quickly around the corner of the building, vanishing into the deeper darkness at the back. I sprinted to our car and yanked the door open. "Drive, just drive now," I choked out. My husband, confused, didn't argue. As we pulled onto the highway, I looked back. She was standing at the corner of the building, a still, dark silhouette watching us disappear into the night. I told him everything. He was angry I'd gone in unprepared, and he was right. We tried to shake it off, to continue our trip. But some things stick with you. Now, I see a potential trap in every quiet rest stop and empty hallway. If this story made you check over your shoulder, do the channel a solid and hit like. It supports Winds of Thought and helps us find more stories that need to be told. A trucker's rule saved my life. Never stop for a white van in a deserted rest area after dark. This was a few winters back. I was in my mid-20s, working a delivery job hauling engine parts and car components across the Midwest. It was usually a good gig, long, quiet drives with decent pay and a lot of autonomy. But one job, one night, rewired my brain about road safety forever. It was the dead of winter, a bitter, clear night where your breath fogs the inside of the windshield. I was eastbound on I-80, running a load from Des Moines. I'd been driving for a couple of hours, the hypnotic rhythm of the road starting to pull my eyelids down. That heavy, dangerous drowsiness. I saw a blue sign for a rest area and decided to pull off, just for 5 minutes to wake up. The place was a ghost town, a low brick building under a few sickly yellow lights, a handful of empty parking spots. Only one other vehicle was there, a plain, windowless white van parked in the farthest corner, dark and silent. I parked directly under a light, locked my rig, and hurried inside. The men's room was cold, smelling of antiseptic and damp concrete. A faulty heater clanked in the corner. I splashed icy water on my face. In the mirror, I thought I heard the main door swing open behind me. I spun around. Nothing. Just the empty room and that rattling heater. I rode it off as the wind finished up and headed back out into the freezing air. That's when I saw it. The white van's headlights were now on, beams cutting through the dark. I hadn't heard an engine start. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. This was wrong. I fumbled with my keys, got back in my truck, and fired it up. As I pulled toward the exit, the van's lights snapped off. Just like that. I merged back onto the empty interstate, telling myself it was nothing. Someone sleeping, a weird electrical glitch. For 5 minutes, my mirrors stayed black. Then, 2 pinpricks of light appeared far behind me. They grew steadily, relentlessly. It was the van. No markings, just a grimy, anonymous box on wheels. It closed the distance fast and settled right on my bumper. I was already pushing 80. It stayed there, inches from my tailgate. Then it swung into the left lane, pacing me. The passenger window rolled down halfway. I could barely make out a figure, a shadow, maybe wearing a hat. He started gesturing wildly, then pointed aggressively at the back of my truck. "Your load is loose," he seemed to be saying. My first thought was panic. Had I secured everything? I checked my side mirror. The bed of my pickup was empty. I was running light. There was nothing to be loose. The realization was a lightning strike. This wasn't a warning, it was a trick. I stared straight ahead, pretending not to see him. He started honking, his van drifting toward my lane, trying to force me onto the shoulder. I swerved away, and he shot ahead, cutting me off before suddenly veering onto the shoulder and stopping dead. Flew past, my pulse in my ears. I pushed the gas, hitting 90, watching my mirrors. A minute later, the headlights were back, following from a distance. Playing a game of cat and mouse for 20 miles. I needed to get to a crowd. I took the next exit for a 24-hour truck stop, pulling into the bright lot and parking near a group of idling semis. I watched the ramp. The van slowly crept into the lot and stopped at the far edge, just watching. I bolted into the attached diner. A bell chimed. A woman behind the counter took one look at my face. I stammered out that I was being followed. She called over to a table. A giant of a man in a flannel shirt stood up, nodded, and walked outside with me. The van was still there, idling. The trucker muttered, "Not good," and told me to go back inside. He walked straight toward the van. I watched from the diner window. After a brief standoff, the van suddenly reversed and sped out of the lot. The trucker came back in. "2 guys in hoodies," he said. Didn't say a word, just stared. I waited an hour before leaving. The rest of the drive, my eyes were glued to the mirror. When I finally reached my destination, I inspected my truck under a hotel lamp. On the tailgate were 2 greasy handprints, smudged as if someone had tried the latch. They weren't trying to warn me, they were trying to get me to stop. I left that job not long after. Now, I never stop after sunset unless it's a crowded, well-lit plaza. I pack my own drinks and snacks, because I know, with absolute certainty, that if I had rolled down that window or pulled over when they wanted, this story would have a very different ending. If this account of a close call stuck with you, please hit the like button. It helps Winds of Thought track what resonates and bring you more true, chilling tales.